With the Google Pixel 6 Pro finally official, how does it compare to the best from Apple in the iPhone 13 Pro Max? What's up guys, Super Saf here, and that's exactly what we'll be finding out in this video by putting all of the key differences between these devices side by side, Super Saf style. I want to start off with the build and design. I do like the design of both of these. The iPhone 13 Pro Max looks a lot like the iPhone 12 Pro Max, however, there's not a huge difference, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro is really fresh. There's really nothing that looks like it at the moment on the market anyway, and that's because of the pretty unique visor camera module, which also makes for some great memes. Regardless, I think both of them do look really good. One of the things that I do like about the iPhone, however, is the fact that it's got a matte finish across all of the different colors, which doesn't attract as many fingerprints and also has a nice look. With the Pixel 6 Pro, I believe one of the colors is matte. I've not had a chance to see it in hand. The version I've got here, the cloudy white, is very glossy and it attracts lots of fingerprints. Now both devices are really premium. We've got a glass back on both devices with a metal frame. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, however, does have a stainless steel frame, which is more durable compared to the aluminium frame on the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Yes, I've double checked this with Google. It is an aluminium frame, even though it's got a glossy finish. It is not stainless steel on the Pixel 6 Pro. The stainless steel on the iPhone, however, does increase its weight and it does weigh quite a bit more compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. The Pixel 6 Pro also has curved edges compared to the flat edges of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is also wider, and for those reasons, I would say that the Pixel 6 Pro is more comfortable to hold compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, I mean, it does take a little bit of time to get used to, I'd say. Now, both devices do have an IP68 water and dust resistant rating. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, however, can be submerged in water quite a bit deeper compared to pretty much all other smartphones out there. Now, I'm not sure how important this is going to be to most people, but if you are somebody who wants to take your smartphone swimming with you, I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but the iPhone is going to be the better option. Now let's move over to the front. So we've got excellent displays on both devices and both are using OLED technology. There are some key differences, however. Firstly, we've got Gorilla Glass Victus on the Pixel 6 Pro versus Ceramic Shield on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, in terms of durability, in my experience, both of these have been very good. I'm not somebody who does drop tests, although I know there's lots of other YouTubers out there that do drop tests, so you can check those out if you want to know the specific durability. One of the things that I have to mention, however, is that the Pixel 6 Pro does have a curved display, so it curves over onto the sides, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max has a flat display. So if you will be applying a screen protector, it will be easier to do on the iPhone 13 Pro Max compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, one thing that I appreciate on both is the fact that we've got a variable refresh rate that goes all the way up to 120 Hertz. They're both using LTPO technology, which means that they can go all the way down to 10 Hertz. Like, for example, right now, where there's static content, it doesn't really need to refresh 120 times a second. But when you're scrolling through your social media feeds, when you're gaming, then they'll be able to go all the way up to 120 Hertz, which just makes everything so much smoother. Now, the Google Pixel 6 Pro does have a high resolution compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. This just means that details are a little bit sharper, but the iPhone 13 Pro Max can get significantly brighter with a peak typical brightness of around 1000 nits, whereas we've got 500 on the Pixel 6 Pro. And when you're viewing HDR content, the iPhone 13 Pro Max can go all the way up to 1200 nits. So if you are somebody who uses your smartphone outdoors a lot, or if you're somebody like me who always wears sunglasses, then you'll really appreciate that additional brightness that you get on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, one of the things that I do have to mention, however, is the fact that the Pixel 6 Pro does get a lot dimmer. Now, this might not apply to everybody, but if you do use your smartphone a lot in the dark before bed, then the Pixel will be easier on the eyes thanks to that increased dimness. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, even if you have night shift on, it doesn't get that dim, unfortunately. The Google Pixel 6 Pro also has an always-on display. This gives you some useful information at a glance when the screen is switched off, such as your time and your notifications. Unfortunately, the iPhone 13 Pro Max does not have an always-on display. It's technically possible to have this because we have the same LTPO technology. and it wouldn't be taking up that much battery life. But for some reason, Apple has decided not to include this, and it's something that I wish the iPhone did have. Now, if you look at the display's head on, you'll see that overall we do have smaller bezels on the Pixel 6 Pro, and we have more of a modern design with the punch out versus the notch on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, the notch is around 20% smaller compared to what we've had in previous years, but it can be more distracting when you're watching full screen content. Now, there is a reason for that notch, and that is Face ID. So Face ID is tried and tested, it works really well, and it's very, very secure. I really like the integration that there is of Face ID with lots of different apps as well. The Pixel 6 Pro has an under-display fingerprint scanner, which works really well. Now, generally, it would be a bit of a draw for me, but for now, while I'm still having to wear masks in lots of different places, I do prefer the under-display fingerprint scanner of the Google Pixel 6 Pro. I really wish that the iPhone 13 Pro Max also had Touch ID in addition to Face ID, maybe on the power button or the Apple logo at the back. Now, some of you guys may say that it's winter, so when you're wearing gloves, then the iPhone will win here, but I guess this is going to come down to your personal preference. Right, now let's talk about the cameras.
Hey, I'll be quick, I promise.
Okay.
Thanks. SideSav here, guys. I just wanted to remind you, if you're enjoying the video so far, then don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, recommending this video to more people who might find it useful. And around 60% of the people watching are not subscribed to the channel, so maybe consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you don't miss future coverage like this. Okay, that's me.
You heard the man. So if you haven't already, do consider subscribing and make SideSav's day. So, the cameras. Now, I have actually done a detailed side-by-side Super Sav style camera comparison between these two. It's almost 20 minutes long, and I've covered all aspects. I'm gonna link that video in the cards and in the description so you can check that out after you've seen this video. But in a nutshell, we have a very similar camera setup on both devices, an ultra-wide, a primary, as well as a telephoto camera. For the primary camera, in good light, I'd give the edge to the Pixel with excellent dynamic range. Google is so good at the image processing side of things. And you also get very bright nighttime shots. However, the iPhone 13 Pro Max tends to give you sharper images in low light. For the ultra-wide cameras, the Pixel still has better dynamic range, but it's just not as wide. It's only 114 degrees. With the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you get 120 degrees, which gives you a better ultra-wide experience. For the telephoto cameras, the Pixel does give you extended zoom, 4 times versus 3 times. And when you do go further, you're gonna get better details on the Pixel. However, when it comes to portraits, the iPhone just does a lot better thanks to the LiDAR scanner, giving you amazing edge detection. Now for selfies, I think it will come down to personal preference. I think both take excellent selfies. For me, the Pixel does edge it out with more natural skin tones compared to the iPhone, which can go more towards the orange side. And although some people might find the Pixel look a bit too over-processed, I do quite like that look. Now when it comes to video, however, the Pixel has improved a lot. Traditionally, Pixel smartphones have really not been so good with video, so the Pixel 6 Pro has definitely improved. However, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is still king for video, giving you better overall dynamic range, better stability, better low light video, and also consistency across all of the cameras. You've got 4K 60 frames a second on all of the cameras, ultra-wide, primary, telephoto, and the front camera on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. On the Google Pixel 6 Pro, you only have 4K 60 frames a second on the primary camera, none of the others. Once again, if you want to see all of the detailed differences for the cameras between both of these devices, I will link to the Super Sav style camera comparison, which you can check out. But overall, I really do like both of these cameras, and they have their advantages and disadvantages. Now let's talk about performance. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max has the Apple A15 Bionic chip, which is amazing, one of the fastest chips out there. The Google Pixel 6 Pro has Google's custom Tensor chip. This is something that's new and we've not seen before. And generally speaking, in day-to-day performance, both are absolutely excellent and they do really, really well. But if we are looking at raw performance, Looking at lots of benchmark results and real-world tests, the A15 Bionic is just ahead compared to Google's Tensor chip. Now, my friend Thunder E from Bored at Work has done a detailed gaming test on the Pixel 6 Pro, which I'll link down in the description if you are really interested to see how they work. And he had the same opinion that when it comes to raw performance, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is just better. Now, the Google Pixel 6 Pro does have double the RAM compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And there are certain areas where I found that the Pixel performs better compared to the 13 Pro Max. One of the things that I have talked about before and I really hope can be improved on the iPhones is the fact that things don't carry on in the background when you don't have an app open. So for example, if I'm trying to upload a story on Instagram, if I leave the app and do something else, that upload will actually pause until I go back in. That might be a few hours later. Whereas on the Pixel, I can leave it uploading, carry on, do what I want, and it will finish uploading in the background for me. Now, this does partly come down to the software as well and how differently both of these manage things. We do have the native versions of the software on both devices. We've got iOS 15 on the iPhone 13 Pro Max with Android 12 out of the box on the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, I'm not really going to go into an Android versus iOS battle because both have their advantages and disadvantages. And there's lots of videos already out there which go through all of the different features side by side. Personally speaking, I think I do like both, and it does come down to personal preference. One of the areas that I do want to talk about, however, are the updates. So with the Pixel 6 Pro, Google proudly said that they will be covering security updates for a minimum of 5 years. But then when we kind of looked into it a little bit more, it turns out that actual software updates will only be supported for around a minimum of 3 years. With the iPhone 13 Pro Max, this is a big advantage that you get on Apple devices. Apple does support their devices for much longer than any other smartphone. So you've got around a minimum of 5 years of software and security updates, but usually it's longer than that. So if you are planning to keep your smartphone for a very long time, maybe you're going to be passing it down to your family members, your kids, then the iPhone is just going to last that much longer compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. Right, for speakers, we do have stereo speakers on both devices, one in the earpiece and one bottom firing, and I think they both sound really, really good. But I would have to give the overall edge to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which just gives you more full sound. I'm not an audio expert, but I did consult with my friend Thunder E from Bored at Work, who is an audio expert, and even for him, he would give the edge to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, although the Pixel 6 Pro is still really good. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about is the port situation. So the Pixel 6 Pro has USB Type-C, which is great, it's universal, it's very fast. The iPhone 13 Pro Max still has Lightning. Now, for somebody like myself who uses a MacBook Pro and an iPad Pro, both of which are Apple products but have USB Type-C, it's really frustrating still having to carry around a Lightning cable for my iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it's something that I wish that Apple now upgraded. Yes, I understand that there's lots of different accessories that still use Lightning, but considering how much faster USB Type-C and how much more convenient it is, I think it's time that we upgraded to USB Type-C, maybe next year. Now let's talk about the batteries. So the Google Pixel 6 Pro does have a larger battery compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but remember, size does not matter. Okay, I mean, it depends on the context, but you get what I mean. And that's because, in my experience, the iPhone 13 Pro Max has actually got better battery life compared to the Google Pixel 6 Pro, and actually much better than pretty much all of the other devices I've tested recently. Now, this is not to say that the Google Pixel 6 Pro has bad battery life. I can get through the day absolutely fine on either of these. I think the Pixel 6 Pro has excellent battery life. It's just that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is better, and usage varies from person to person, but for my personal usage, I'm getting around, I'd say 20% better battery life on the iPhone 13 Pro Max compared to the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Now, when it comes to charging, neither of these come with a charger included out of the box. You are gonna have to buy this separately, but the Pixel does get some advantages here. Firstly, it does support faster 30-watt charging compared to 20-watt charging on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So you will be able to get around 50% charge in just 30 minutes on the Pixel 6 Pro. But it also has faster Qi wireless charging, around 12 watts versus 7.5 watts on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, both devices can charge faster wirelessly if you use the proprietary charging methods of both manufacturers. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max with MagSafe, you can get up to 15 watts. I do personally really like MagSafe. It's so convenient. You never really have the risk of placing your device slightly off on your wireless charger and waking up to a dead device. It just snaps on. The Pixel 6 Pro, however, can go all the way up to 23 watts of wireless charging. However, that is with the Google Pixel Stand Gen 2. So something specific you're gonna have to buy to be able to get that faster charging speed. The Pixel 6 Pro also has battery share. This is where you'll be able to charge other devices on the back of the Pixel 6 Pro. Not something that I use all the time, but say, for example, if you do have some earbuds and you're out and you run out of battery, you can just place them at the back of the Pixel and get a top-up, which is quite convenient. Right, finally, let's talk about storage and pricing. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is available in more storage options in more places, all the way up to 1 terabyte. Now, the Google Pixel 6 Pro, you've got it in 128, 256. The 512 gigabyte version, as far as I'm aware, is only available in the US, maybe in other regions, but not here in the UK. But when it comes to pricing, the Pixel 6 Pro is coming in quite a bit cheaper compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. It starts at around £200 or dollars lower compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max when we look at the base 128 gigabyte version. Now that's quite a bit of a saving, and if we do compare the highest storage option, say the 512 gigabyte version, to the base model 128 gigabyte version of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, they are at the same price of $1,100 in the US. So you're gonna get 4 times the storage on the Pixel 6 Pro compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So yeah, when it comes to pricing, you are definitely getting more value for money with the Pixel 6 Pro compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So that is the Google Pixel 6 Pro versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The Google Pixel 6 Pro does give you some advantages. It's coming in at quite a bit lower in terms of the price. You're getting faster charging options. You're getting some advantages on the display and some areas where the camera does perform better compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. But with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you're getting a much brighter display. You're getting better video, the best video on any smartphone out right now. You're getting better battery life, and you're getting overall better performance with longer software updates. But at the end of it all, it might just come down to the operating system. Which do you prefer, Android or iOS? Definitely let me know in the comments below which one you would pick, the iPhone 13 Pro Max or the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Now don't forget that there's going to be lots more coverage here on the channel with the Google Pixel 6 Pro. I'm currently working on a detailed comparison similar to this one of the Google Pixel 6 Pro versus the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. So if you don't want to miss that, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you'll know about it first. If you want to see the detailed camera comparison between the Pixel 6 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I'll leave that linked here in the cards, as well as another Pixel video somewhere here. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time.